Have you ever really stopped to wonder how we could possibly know what life was like for someone, say, 5,000 years ago? I mean, how do we get past the giant monuments and the epic battles to understand the real, day-to-day human experience of a world that feels so impossibly far away? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into. You know, this line from Thornton Wilder's play Our Town just perfectly captures how a lot of us feel about ancient history. That it's basically just a collection of dry, dusty facts, right? A list of kings, a few wars, and some boring legal documents. A world of big, important figures, sure, but with very little soul. But what if I told you that for ancient Mesopotamia especially, that idea is almost completely wrong? The truth is, we know an absolutely astonishing amount about the people who lived between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. And the best part, we have them to thank for it. You see, Mesopotamian scribes were meticulously, you could almost say obsessively, dedicated to recording everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Their passion for pressing words into clay tablets gives us this picture of their world that's so detailed, it's actually startling sometimes. And the things we've found are just so relatable. We have actual records showing that beer was so important it was used to pay workers' wages. We've dug up homes with indoor plumbing and toilets. We found children's toys, dolls, rattles, even little toy chariots. We know they played board games, that they wore makeup, and get this, they had laws so specific that if a builder's house collapsed and killed the owner, the builder could be put to death. Yeah, this is so much more than just kings and contracts. Their society was also incredibly complex. This wasn't just a world of rich people at the top and poor people at the bottom. Of course you had the king and nobility, but then you had this powerful class of priests and priestesses, which, by the way, included the world's very first known author, a woman named Enheduanna. How cool is that? Then came an upper class of merchants and architects, a lower class of farmers, brewers, and artists who were really the engine of the city, and finally, a class of slaves, who in some cases could even earn enough to buy their own freedom. The takeaway is that this was a dynamic, highly structured, living, breathing civilization. Okay, so this all leads to the next big question, right? If we have all this incredible detail, where does it actually come from? How do we take all these little fragments and piece them together into a picture that makes sense? Well, it's kind of like a giant detective story. And the historians, they're the detectives, working with two main types of clues. On one hand, you've got the written record, literally thousands upon thousands of clay tablets, detailing everything from beer recipes to epic poetry. And on the other hand, you have the physical evidence, the actual stuff they left behind, the ruins of their cities, the pottery they ate from, the jewelry they wore, the tools they used. See, neither one tells the whole story on its own, but when you put them together, that's when the past really starts to come into focus. And that physical evidence can tell an incredible story of innovation all by itself. Just take the wheel, which first popped up in Mesopotamia. Around 4500 BCE, it starts as a potter's wheel, completely changing how things are made. About 1,000 years later, it gets turned on its side, made of solid wood, and slapped on a cart to haul heavy stuff. But the real game changer comes around 2000 BCE with the spoked wheel. It's lighter, it's faster, and it leads directly to a terrifying new piece of military technology. The war chariot. This thing completely upended warfare. At the famous Battle of Kadesh between the Egyptians and the Hittites, it's estimated that nearly 6,000 chariots were used. 6,000. That one number, which we figured out from both archaeological finds and written records, just shows you the massive, massive impact of that one technological leap, from a clunky wooden disc to a spoked wheel. But, and this is a really, really important but, for all the amazing things the evidence tells us, there are some things it just can't. There are real, fundamental limits to what we can ever know for certain. The historical record is powerful, but it's not, and it never can be, complete. It's more like a giant puzzle with a ton of missing pieces. It's full of gaps, big, human-sized gaps. A clay tablet can give us a law, but it can't tell us what a couple of friends sounded like arguing about it over dinner. An artifact can show us a board game, but it can't capture the feeling of a family laughing together after a long day. What did it feel like to be them? What were their deepest fears, their biggest dreams? What did the city of Ur smell like on a hot afternoon? These are the deep human questions that a piece of broken pottery just can't answer. So let's circle all the way back to that quote from the beginning. Maybe Thornton Wilder wasn't totally wrong. Maybe he was just pointing to a different, deeper kind of truth. We may have the data, but the data alone doesn't give us the people. And that right there, that is the fundamental challenge for anyone trying to truly connect with the past. So if that's the challenge, how do we bridge that gap? How do we get from the cold, hard facts to the warm, living experience? The answer, it turns out, lies in the disciplined art of storytelling. Now, the goal here isn't impossible, perfect accuracy. It's something called historical authenticity. Think of it like this. It's the craft of creating a world that feels true to the spirit of the time. It's about taking everything we do know to build a plausible, immersive experience that captures the general vibe of that world. And there's a real process to this. First, you have to start with the facts. You anchor everything in the actual archaeological and written evidence. Then you identify the gaps, the conversations, the emotions, the smells that the record can't give you. The crucial next step is to fill those gaps with a plausible story. Not fantasy, but imagined people and events that could have existed within that world. And finally, and this might be the most important step, you have to preserve the spirit of the era and avoid shoving our modern ideas into their world. And this isn't just about making things up. It's a totally legitimate and essential part of the craft of historical storytelling. When something simply can't be known for sure, an informed, plausible, imaginative interpretation is how we bring that world back to life. Ultimately, our understanding of the past is never just one thing. It's a fusion, right? It's the scientific rigor of archaeology and translation blended with the creative art of storytelling. And that combination is what allows us to connect with the actual people of the past, not just the data they happen to leave behind. Which leaves us with one last kind of fascinating question to think about. When we piece together facts, when we decide which details to highlight and then create a narrative to explain it all, are we doing something all that different from a historical novelist? You start to wonder, is all history in its own way a form of storytelling?